Hey, what's up guys? It's TechZoomer talking to you here. And today, I've not got the M2 MacBook Air with me right now because I returned it. Because I did not use it for much. It did not have much purpose, my mom didn't want it, so I returned the MacBook Air. But in today's video will be my last comparison of the M2 MacBook Air, direct one of course. And in today's comparison, I will compare it to the iPad Pro lineup in general. So if you have an iPad Pro, should you upgrade to an M2 MacBook Air, or even if you are looking for your base computer to university, to study, to do some light work on, which computer should you choose? A very light and powerful M2 MacBook Air and the lighter but less powerful iPad Pro. Which one should you choose? The touch-enabled device or the monster of productivity that the macOS system enables? So in today's video, I will compare everything from the display to the features, the performance, the cameras, everything, the keyboards, every type of choice that you have. So if you are interested in these types of comparisons, do not forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate your support. And of course, no further ado, let's get started. So first of all, these are two different concepts. The iPad Pro lineup, it's more of the portable, but still an iPad design. So Apple approaches the iPad OS team, and the iPad in general has still an iPad. This is not a full-on laptop, but with the most recent iPad Pros, you now have the Stage Manager. At the end of this year, I expect that we will get an M2 iPad Pro, and with the capability of using Stage Manager. That enables multi-window use, so it's much more better for doing multitasking, but still, it's not the perfect device. The macOS system present on the M2 MacBook Air is a much more productivity-focused device and possibly the better device for you. These two designs are very different though. The iPad Pro is very much more thinner than the MacBook Air. But if you decide to add any type of case to this iPad Pro, for example, the Smart Folio case that I have here, when compared to the M2 MacBook Air, the thickness just turns out to be the same. Even if you choose the Magic Keyboard, which is the more close accessory to make your iPad Pro to a MacBook, then it just turns out to be thicker and more heavy. So the iPad Pro, in my opinion, serves you only if you are going to use the keyboard sometimes, but more often than that, you will use the touch screen, because it's very important that the touch screen should be a priority to you when deciding between these two devices, because the iPad Pro main strength is having a touch screen. The M2 MacBook Air doesn't have one. So if you prefer to use your fingers and your favorite input device is your finger, you like to use touch, you're very much used to it, because let's be honest, in today's day and age, everyone just wants to use touch on their device. Like using a computer is for more professional and more expert people. We are all used to our smartphones. I do still think there's a very big market for the M2 MacBook Air, and the fact that it doesn't have a touch screen, I don't really care about it. The iPad Pro though, the main focus is the touchscreen, and for university work, from light work, you can still use Excel, Word, PowerPoint. It works very well actually using those, and I do love the iPad Pro to do those types of work. But you have to keep in mind that the iPad Pro doesn't have the app support that the macOS system has. So for some specific work, you might be in trouble with the iPad Pro. Another thing with this design is the fact that this is very thin, very light, and it has around 8 hours of battery life, 8 to 7 hours of battery life in good days. But the M2 MacBook Air has a better battery life. It lasts you around 19 hours of very light use and about 7 to 8 hours of very heavy use. So the iPad Pro is not a battery champion compared to the M2 MacBook Air, which is bigger. It has more ports. This one only has one USB-C and one smart connector, which actually enables you another USB-C if you buy the Magic Keyboard. But the MacBook Air has two Thunderbolt 3 ports and, of course, a MagSafe port, which enables the two Thunderbolt 3 ports to be free when charging. So, in terms of I/O, it's kind of no discussion. This one only has one port. You can buy like those hubs, which completely resolves the problem, but it's still, in my opinion, not enough. So, this iPad Pro, in my opinion, in terms of design, is more focused for people that want a very light, easy-to-use device that you can simply carry around, use for touch, like I'm doing right now, picking it up, using the touch screen, which is very easy to use, and then, like when they want, they simply go and do their work on a desktop computer. But if you do really like using a computer that is not touch and you don't really care, do you want to use a keyboard, a mouse, a trackpad, and you want the macOS experience, your only choice is the M2 MacBook Air. Another thing that is also important to notice in this hardware is the fact that this one has quad speakers, but the M2 MacBook Air also has very good speakers, and in the comparison between those two, like, I don't know, take a listen and let me know which one is the better one. Another thing that is very good in this iPad and is not as great on the M2 MacBook Air is the webcam. This one has a 1080p webcam, but it's amazing. Like, it's incredible. This Face ID or FaceTime camera on the iPad Pro is very good. While the back camera is even better, and the M2 MacBook Air doesn't have one. So you have to take a choice. If you do really need to like digitalize documents and scan documents and sign documents with the Apple Pencil, then the iPad Pro is for you, while the M2 MacBook Air doesn't have that option. Another thing that is also very interesting on the iPad concept is the Apple Pencil. I don't have mine right now, but you can use the Apple Pencil to sign stuff, and of course to use it as a stylus for drawing or doing Affinity Photo, Photoshop work if you do want to. Which brings me to the next thing. The software support on the iPad Pro is kind of lacking. You have a pretty bad and badly optimized Photoshop with some lacking features. You have the Affinity Photo app, which is very good. I use it on the iPad Pro, but then it ends there because you don't have Final Cut, you don't have Logic Pro. If you need more professional tools like SolidWorks or even other devices to do 3D rendering work, it's very difficult to use them, or even not possible to use them on the iPad Pro. While the macOS system, it's very, very much supported. Even if you don't really support the macOS system, you can get a virtual machine and simply download Windows. So that's your solution there. While the iPad Pro doesn't have that solution. And that's a very big one, because I do think that software support for people that want to use their device to work, it's a big thing. So the iPad Pro just turns out to be a very big media streaming device for some people. Like me, I just use it to stream videos. So the iPad Pro is a very cool, interesting subject, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's professional enough to do some professional work. If you don't really mind it, use it for university, take some notes in your classroom. The Apple Pencil is amazing for that. I use it every single day when I'm studying. But of course, like I was telling you, the Apple Pencil is for some people, not for everyone. So it's very important that you decide which is more important to you, the Apple Pencil or the macOS system. Finally, we have the display. The display on this device is 120 Hz ProMotion display, but it is not mini LED. This is an LCD display. This is a 2018 iPad Pro, the iPad that I recommend you buying if you want to buy an iPad Pro, by the 2018 refurbished. But the newer 2021 device comes with the mini LED display, which is still ProMotion. So yes, I do still think it's a good thing to have the ProMotion on the iPad Pro. But the MacBook Air has a LCD liquid retina display, the same as this one, and it's 60 Hz, not 120. So I do not advise you to go for a display if you do really need the HDR, because that display, although it's 500 nits of brightness, the HDR is not true. So if you do really need HDR, then the iPad Pro is the only solution. But for most people, the 60 Hz liquid retina display won't be bad, and it will serve the purpose very, very well. So in my opinion, the iPad Pro's display is better right now, but it's also smaller, and for some people, it doesn't make that much sense. So let's talk about performance. The M1 iPad Pro that you have available right now, when compared to the older M1 MacBook Air, was about the same performance, and it did about the same thermal management. Those are two different systems, but they don't have a fan. So they almost like behave the same in terms of thermal management. But the M2 MacBook Air showed to have some thermal restraints. So the M2 chip, sometimes when put under very heavy loads, can thermally throttle. Well, the iPad Pro is thinner and smaller, and so it's a more constrained device in terms of thermals. So I do expect that the M2 chip will be restrained in some type, and it won't be having full power on the M2 iPad Pro. So right now, if you ask me, should I care about performance on the iPad? No, because there's no app on the iPad store that enables full performance. So don't really care about the performance on the iPad Pro. It's very powerful enough. If you do really need the M2 chip here, tell me what you are doing, because I don't know what you are doing to need that much power. But the M2 coming on the iPad Pro will be around 90% powerful enough when compared to the M2 MacBook Air. The performance should not be your worries, and I won't really care. Of course, the M2 MacBook Air has a 1900 on single core performance and 8000 and something or 9000 on multi-core. So if that's for you, then that's the benchmark results on Geekbench 5. But in terms of performance, I don't really care. Those two behave the same. The more important part is the software support and, of course, what you want to do. If you do really want a very slick and light laptop that can do very bursty things, or you want an iPad which has the touch support and Apple Pencil support. So those are the big things when comparing an M2 MacBook Air to an iPad Pro. Decide which one do you really need, decide which are your priorities, and then decide which device should you go for. The M2 iPad Pro at the end will be way more expensive than the M2 MacBook Air. Be careful with that, because this device can go almost to $2,000 when speccing it out and choosing a Magic Keyboard. So be very careful with that. While the M2 MacBook Air starts at $1199 with the keyboard, the mouse, the trackpad, and the speakers and everything that you will need, all the ports, and of course the M2 MacBook Air. Be very careful which one you choose, but at the end of the day, I think you will make the right choice if you do follow my advice. So I do think that this was a very interesting video to do. The iPad Pro is a very interesting device. I will still use it to do some stuff, but not everything. The M1 Max MacBook Pro almost replaced this device for me. But using Lightroom, using Affinity Photo, using other video editing software on the iPad Pro, you can do almost 90% of the work for most people. But let me know in the comments down below which one you pick, the M2 MacBook Air, the M2 iPad Pro. Let me know in the comments down below, do you still think that the iPad Pro still has a place on everyone's ecosystem? I do still think so, but let me know your comments down below. So, before you go, do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. This has been Tech Summer talking to you here. Bye.